Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
There is something I feel is stalking me at night, and I would like y'all's advice. For context, I live in Illinois on the edge of a suburb an hour away from Chicago, and the area I live in is full of forest preserves, empty space, farms, and large areas of dense forest. We are also not allowed to fence off our yards. Last year around this time, I started going outside a lot recently, and in my yard, just outside of the area reached by the light from my house, by a shed we have in the back of our property, I saw something. It looked like a shadow person, but much more real, like a full-ass humanoid-looking thingamajiggy. It was barely visible, but my friend, who I was walking to his car on the edge of the property about 60 yards away, I saw it too. I started to encounter it more. Sometimes it wasn't a sighting, but maybe I'd hear a few twigs break, or see something rustling in the bushes, or just feel its eyes watching me from afar. A very common sensation. One night, a couple weeks later, I was at the aforementioned friend's house, about 3 miles away, if that. It was 3 a.m. and we had just gotten back from a McDonald's run, and I was sitting at the table alone, while he and a couple other friends were heading to bed upstairs, and left me alone on the first floor. I felt that dread kick in, and right as I turned around to look through a window, right behind me, I saw something run past it on 2 legs, in a humanoid fashion, and fast as hell too. Looked like a coyote or maybe a deer, but it was running like a full-ass man. Another time we were working out in my friend's basement, and we heard someone, or something, scream outside. He grabbed a shotgun and handed me a spear. What is a spear gonna do, asshole? And when we went outside to check, there was no one there. He's had that happen twice now. Another time, after a bonfire at my house, me, him, and a group of friends decided to go on a walk through the neighborhood by my backdoor neighbor. So we're walking around at night past all the trees and houses, hanging around, when me and another friend of mine decide to walk into an area of the woods I've never been in before. I've lived in this house for almost 6 years now, so even though I'm a homebody, I go for runs and shit and explore. So we were probably a good 20-minute walk from home at this point, since we were getting in a woods and the only houses were farms and shit. I walk into this dark-ass wooded area, and it immediately drops like 10 or 15 degrees. I started getting paranoid and noped back to the road. My friend who walked in me claims he heard someone calling his name, and says he saw a humanoid figure slinking around the trees, like it was trying to stay hidden, like some messed up animal. We almost had to go in and drag the friend out, because he just did not want to leave the woods. Thankfully, he snapped out of it after a few minutes. While we were walking back to my house, we noticed the area go weirdly silent, like not even cicadas or anything. Then, the smell hit me. It smelled like death, like rotting meat. Safe to say I schizoid out over it and noped out of there with everyone else following behind. After that, I've smelled the rotting smell time to time wander around my windows late at night. My house is a tri-level and I'm in the bottom floor, so my windows are exactly ground level. And even heard animal calls, or have seen a figure stalking outside my yard. Silhouette looked like some weird human coyote thing, or maybe I was just tired or something. Another time, I was out biking down a bike trail with my friend, and we got deep in a woods at night. And I swear to shit, we both were able to hear something in the bushes following us, despite us pedaling hard. I also got that uneasy feeling of being hunted by all of these encounters. Like some survival instinct that I am not the apex predator in that situation. And I don't get that feeling very often. One time last winter, I had found tracks of some kind of animal in my yard after a small little encounter of seeing a figure outside by the shed. I brought out a North American wildlife tracks book, and the tracks matched none of them.
Hey/X/, I'm here either for advice or to make contact with someone. I'm being watched and things in my life manipulated. I was nearly certain this has been happening for a decade since I left the intelligence community in my country. But I'm married, just bought an apartment. and am now running 2 engineering teams directly under the Chief Technology Officer, with offers to take that role. I've got too much going on to risk airing that and destroy not only my life but my wife too. The reason it went beyond certain was another case of shit being moved in my apartment. I spent 2 hours pulling the place apart looking for a supplement, NAC, with my wife helping for much of it. We even had a little fight when I said she must have thrown it away. Just a few bards, then we both apologized for letting emotions get involved and moved on. The next morning, I wake up to my wife asking when I found the NAC. It was sitting in the middle of the counter next to the other 2. I had checked that spot over 10 times and was absolutely certain it wasn't there, and my wife had done the same. But there it was in plain view, exactly where it should be. This time I was supposed to notice. It wasn't my wife. I know it wasn't her. I even said plainly that if it was a prank, if she doesn't come clean right now and pushes it further, I would divorce her. She understood and confirmed it was no prank. And I know her tells when she lies. The woman is honest and would never lie about something like this, as she's dobbed herself in for far worse and knows I won't react badly. I'm the most easygoing guy that either of us know. Am I supposed to have noticed and kept it to myself? Told my wife I put it there, then figure out who left me a message? This isn't the first time. There have been a few generally when I'm doing something naughty legal-wise. In my old apartment with my headphones, I did the same. I had equipment replaced, like USB-A to C adapters that suddenly spiked my network traffic whenever I plugged them in, even with nothing in the adapter. I found a Panda board, Chinese Raspberry Pi, in my roof a few years back because it showed up on Wi-Fi momentarily, obviously using burst exfiltration to avoid detection from scanners, and in this case using my Wi-Fi when available. The reason my wife believes it all because she was with me when I caught one in my car. We went in to buy shoes, and I decided to swap the shoes I had on already to make things easier. So we ran back, only to see an Asian dude in a suit leaning into my car with a knee on my passenger seat. As soon as he saw us, he just got out, closed the door, then walked around the corner quickly. I chased him only to round the corner to him on the phone, and suddenly acting like I was crazy. Like he had been there on the phone the whole time and my wife and I didn't see anything. It was so flagrant a lie that it stumped me. And with my wife there, I just checked my car, looking for any equipment he left behind. I don't know if he was installing or removing. I was visiting the city from 3 hours away, so I might have had their equipment for some time, and this was the best opportunity to get it back. As I mentioned, I worked in intelligence for my country's version of the FBI, still in Five Eyes. In fact, I was able to graduate early and was given my own team doing research and development, basically inventing tech for a specific area of fieldwork. I was the golden child, and I was seconded far deeper into that community than anyone with my age or experience would even dream of. My identity at my country's equivalent of Homeland Security was literally XKIX01, where XXX is the code for my main employer. I was a dumb kid, and while I never told anyone anything of importance, I did think I was James Bond or something and would purposely slip up so people would realize just how fucking cool I am because of my job. It's pathetic in hindsight, but I was barely 22 and my only bosses were more than 5 hours away by plane, so I was on my own until I hired other grads to help me. They didn't help. It might have been my holidays to China, the women, the drugs, under control, never in public and never affected my work. I went from being obviously groomed to vanish into the community forever, my dream, to a radioactive problem child. I quickly got the message and moved on, worked at Amazon, banking, credit, and am now in healthcare, running engineering teams across different time zones. I was one of my country's gate kid equivalents. I was in a GATS class, but also had an entire year in 4th grade where, after completing the 9th grade math curriculum, I attended a special class between recess and lunch that was just me alone. Usually I could do whatever I wanted, but sometimes I was given specific tests, but if I'm honest, I don't remember what was in them. I had all the gate kid things. Gold red hair, eyes that change from blue to green over long periods of time, a scar on my forehead, literal lightning bolt between my eyebrows. I drowned as a kid, then was suddenly fine and playing on the rocks that I just drowned under. I'm beyond smart. 150 IQ, came second in an international math comp. First place was 4 years older than me. Before I went back to not trying or purposely dropping grades, my aptitude results for my Gov employer above was the highest result possible. But I've wasted most of this potential. Despite my decent job, I could have been or done a lot more. Even physically, I was gifted at almost all sports and had a level of hand-eye coordination reaction speed that I'm yet to see matched. Again, wasted. Before all that, I was abused physically and mentally. My carer as a toddler had 2 kids. I was far ahead of developmentally despite being younger, so she punished me for it. They would steal snacks I didn't even like and blame me. I would be flogged or locked out the back in winter in just a pair of shorts. My kindergarten teacher would bring me to the front of class so the entire class could sing songs about me forgetting my lunchbox or whatever triggered her. I still remember the modified nursery rhymes that messed up any chance to have a normal social life forever. And finally, I had a sadistic sister who in one example went to the bathroom, pulled my towel off the rack, told my mother it was on the floor. Then when dumb innocent me said I'd hung it up, I was hit with the wooden spoon in a rage until it snapped, and then with another. I had to be kept home because I was black and purple over half my body, while she sat and smiled at me. She got caught eventually, but I was already messed up permanently. I dealt with severe depression, and when I met my current wife, I was basically burning through everything I had saved with no intention of there being a long term. The only reason I was still going at that point was that I didn't want my mom to blame herself. So for example, in 2012 I fought the ex-BF of a girl I was going to see who turned up and grabbed a knife. I won and saved the girls, but still survived despite a week in ICU. I met my current wife a few years later, and now I'm finally happy and hitting all the normie life goals. So no idea what they came back now. The last part is my luck. I seem to literally bend causality around myself. My wife is freaked out by it, but everything just works out for me. I'm running late for a plane. It gets delayed. I ran out of fuel. A random woman I've never met before offers me her keys and car to go get some while she waits. I tried the gateway and predicted a scene to my wife a week in advance in such detail, she grabbed me when it actually happened, once I guessed over 40 of the 52 cards in a deck. I seem to always make the lucky decision, take the right path. Never enough to win the lottery, but enough that I should have been arrested or fired multiple times for stupid shit I did out of depression. I often knew stuff I had no way of knowing, or knew exactly where to look or what to click. It even works in programming. Everyone calls me in when something is broken, because I find the root of the issue so quickly every time. At this point, I just want to know who and why. I'm right here. I've grown a lot. I'm a flawed man. But at my age, you either want me for something now or you think I'm a bad guy, or you aren't even from this country and are watching someone you think is an asset. I've lived under this for nearly a decade, but the recent escalation tells me something is up. If you are just waiting till I finish getting off the last of the drugs, that's fine. That will happen either this weekend or at the worst, next. This is everything I had prepped. The rest will be responses if someone engages here.
How did schizos get sold on NAC so hard?
I just got a range of supplements from the investigation of Brian Johnson. I'm not killing worms, and as for schizo, my wife also saw them in my car. Was there when I found equipment in my roof and had seen things moved around our apartment while we sleep multiple times. I used to work for these guys. 7 years I ran a team dedicated to this stuff. It's being done specifically to make it noticeable. Each time the item is put exactly where it was supposed to be, so you can't mistake it as just having not checked that spot. In this case, it was right in the center of the kitchen bench, the same spot I'd put the rest of the supplements I use daily when I was looking for the missing one. The only way this isn't someone doing this is if I have a split personality and the other me is moving shit around. But even then, how did I hide the stuff so good we could never find it despite both of us pulling the apartment apart?
/X/ I believe that I have a spirit attached to me somehow. I am consistently waking up every night around 3 a.m. I live alone with my grandmother and our dog. I think that our dog can sense it too. Normally, whenever I wake up, she is either at my door trying to get inside my room, or she is in my bed, and alert looking at my door. During the day, she stays home with my grandmother and will sit on the couch watching the hallway and will not relax until I get home, but even then she is always looking at the hallway. A bit of backstory, my grandfather used to live with us until his passing around a year ago. A few months after that, my dog developed some pretty weird anxiety, and she would often at times tuck her tail between her legs and shake for a long time. Around that time, I also began to wake up at 3 a.m. most nights, but it wasn't until recently that I actually noticed it. I have always woken up a lot during the night, but for some reason it has begun to really affect my sleep, and I am almost certain of my emotional state. I dream very vividly, and I have for a long time. Interestingly though, I quit dreaming for a couple months and then suddenly it has come back. I dream mainly of nightmares, whether they are mundane or they are insane. I never suffer from sleep paralysis. Tonight I did an egg cleanse, a lime cleanse, and a garlic cleanse. I have probably done 2 or 3 egg cleanses in the past year. The egg cleanse came out to have very long and thick pieces off the yolk almost touching the top of the water. The lime cleanse involved me doing the cleanse and throwing the lime out at the intersection on the way home from my girlfriend's house. The garlic I will be carrying in my wallet for a week. If it rots within that time, I will be redoing it. I had some other stuff typed up, but /x/ would not let me post. I am happy to answer any questions. Something is watching me. I am almost certain of it. My drinking and temper have gotten quite bad. Unrelated? I don't know. A normal night for me looks like this. Head to bed around 10 or 12. Dream. Wake up around 3 or 4. If dog did not sleep with me, then I would hear her at my door trying to get in. If dog did sleep with me, then she would be perked up looking at the door. Stay awake for a little bit and then go back to sleep. Dream wake up, 6:45 to go to work. Feel like shit. Last night was different. Everything was normal except usually I let my dog in, but I did not last night. Just wanted to get some sleep. As soon as I closed my eyes to go back to sleep, I felt instantly nauseous. Got up and walked around the house with my dog, who is jogging, for lack of a better word, and actively walking around. We go back and lay down and I go to bed an hour later. Probably should have included that in the first post, but it was too long.
I think I managed to communicate with a chipmunk the other day, sitting in the backyard, enjoying the weather. See a chipmunk hopping from one end of the house to another several times, paying me no mind. I'm sitting about 10 or 15 feet away from it. Decide to focus and reach out to the monk to mentally say hello. He's bouncing along underneath a bush, then suddenly stops once I say hello. Can see he's hiding behind the stem of the bush, but turns to face me, then starts chittering at me in his little chipmunk speech. Realize I don't understand chipmunk, so no clue what he's saying to me, but he sounded kind of annoyed. I apologize for interrupting his busy schedule, that I can't understand him. Tell him our family means him no harm, and that I'm going to have to tear up the bushes he's hiding in once autumn comes. He doesn't respond, but moves to the top of an old planter that's underneath the bush to, presumably, get a better look at me. Tell him to have a good day, and that I hope it's productive for him. He just sits there watching me for 5 to 10 minutes before finally hopping away. It's been about 20 minutes since this when I heard a little rustling in the grass next to me. Look over, and a tiny chipmunk has hopped about 2 feet away from the chair I'm sitting in. Not sure if it's the same one I was talking to, but I say hello and wave. He turns around and runs away. Trying to convince myself it was all a coincidence. But the oddness of it all has really stuck with me the last few days. Anyone else have any strange animal-related stories or experiences?
When I was younger, I used to be able to tell when anyone was watching me. I know. Everyone says they can feel this in their gut, but I don't believe it was to the same level that I could. I could focus on the gut feeling, and I could clearly see the person looking at me, what they were wearing, what they were doing, etc. I asked a couple of people about it the next time I saw them. Everyone laughed it off until a time I talked to my brother about this, and it really freaked him out. He had heard my stories and thought he would put me up to a test. He said he watched me the whole time and knew that I never turned in his direction. I told him where he was hiding, how he got to that location, and how long he had been waiting there. He was a lot older and larger than I was at the time, and when he started yelling, I learned to not ask people about it anymore. I took a hard hit to the gut directly in the area that I felt that someone's watching sensation a few years later. Whatever that was, got disconnected during the hit. I could no longer feel that sensation, and it never came back. I haven't thought about this for a couple of decades, and the thought just popped in my mind recently. Have any of you ever had a similar experience? Is there anything I can do to gain back what I lost? One thing that hasn't gone away is the ability to sense someone's innermost being, especially when that person is truly evil. I have gotten the feeling of being in the presence of great evil several times throughout my life, and even when the person was loved by all, their secret hidden lives filled by evil have come out within a year. My wife has learned to trust me on this because I've been wrong a total of 0 times. I'm also interested in learning to invest in this ability if anyone has information on what to do. I'll make this last part about someone being evil a little more concrete without totally doxing myself. Be me. Get invited to a party hosted by a semi-famous guy in local town. Happy because of free food and beer, burgers, brats, etc. Meet a semi-famous guy. Shake hands and look into his eyes. Pure evil coming out of him. Pull my wife to the side and tell her we need to go. She tells me about plans to stay and play games. Tell her he's evil, pure evil. Thinks I'm being crazy but agrees with my proven track record. Some time passes and he's so great. Swear to my wife that he is a bad man. Fast forward a few months and people are sad because the semi-famous guy is moving away. Gets caught by police in another location because he is holding his wife hostage every night in chains, abusing foster kids, etc. Take no pleasure in being right. doomerwojak.jpg.
A few years ago I got involved with a girl whose family was moving large amounts of drugs. I had no clue this was going on. Our shared home was raided by the feds and brought in for questioning. I was released when it became obvious that I didn't know shit about their operations. I continued to see her, and we lived together on the agreement that I didn't want to know anything about her family business. Immediately after this all happened, I noticed that we were being pretty openly tailed and watched. This eventually led to me hearing voices in my head almost beamed into my consciousness. These voices would taunt me and say all kinds of messed up shit like how I was going insane and that the government would kill me. This eventually grew into seeing things like shadow men and eyes watching me constantly. I have no history of drug use or mental illness. This continued for about 3 months until my GF's dad and brother were both indicted on trafficking charges, to which it abruptly stopped. Has anyone else had similar experiences? Anyone else been through this so-called psychic warfare? It was the most fucked up experience in my life.
My opinion, if your brain is sensitive enough, you might find yourself accidentally tuning into the thoughts of other people. No shit. I read some Rupert Sheldrake about this the other day. Here's some of it to look at the sense of being stared at. Rupert Sheldrake 1. There's a great deal of evidence that attention and intention can extend far beyond the brains in which they are centered. 2. The pseudopodia of intention that project into the future from people and from other animals are projected into a realm not of complete determinism or of complete indeterminism, but of probability. They themselves contribute to the probabilities of what will happen. 3. John Taylor has recently proposed a theory of ESP in which information transfer occurs between living brains by a kind of resonance between similar patterns of nervous activity, even through time. Maybe your dumb ass became a topic of conversation among the spooks tasked with reining in your girl's family and you got some heavily charged vibes thrown your way. It could have happened.
/x/this happened on shift last night. I hardly slept because of this shit. Going to Greentext because lazy also might be a long one. I need to know if anyone has had experience with this in the Pennsylvania area. Working night shifts at a grocery store. Putting up stock waiting for customers. Hear the automatic door open. Go to the counter to meet customer. The guy comes to the checkout and asks what the woman outside was doing. A wiry-haired 50-year-old woman stood about 15 meters away and looking at us through the window. The guy leaves, freaking out. She stood there not moving at all. 5 minutes pass and I just get back to what I was doing. About to forget the woman when the door opens. My gut tells me it was the woman. Just as I'm about to get up, she appears at the end of the aisle really quickly and smiles. Drop the cans I was stacking and try to ask if I could help her. Without saying anything, she walks out the store and I follow behind her. She proceeds to go back to where she was originally and started to stare at me again. Decide, screw this. I need to do my job and go back to stacking shelves. Important to note that the woman couldn't see me, and I couldn't see her unless I was at the counter because the shelves blocks vision to the door. As I'm about to go to the aisle again, I get a gut feeling to turn around. She's walking up to the store again. Return to the counter. She goes back to her original position. WTF.jpg. Devise a test. Go back to the aisle and she starts to walk. Go back to the counter and she goes back to her original position. Decide I'm not dealing with her any longer and just sit at the counter and watch YouTube videos. She finally leaves after 3 or 4 hours of just watching me. Shift ends at 7 a.m. Manager comes in and I ask him about the woman. Replies, "Oh, that's Maggie. She does it to all stores in the area. Going to quit my job after only being here a week. Anyone else in the Pennsylvania area have experience with this?"
Hello/X/. Lately, I have been experiencing something weird. I decided that 4chan would be a good place to talk about it, /X/ being the best option, probably. I'm not a writer or anything such as, but I'm going to try my best. Around 9 weeks ago, I started having weird sleep patterns. By that I mean that I suddenly fell asleep for 30 minutes being the longest. It happened around 1 time a day. It didn't happen when I was tired or fully energized. It just happened and I didn't feel any different after waking up. I felt just like I felt before falling asleep. Around a week later, it started happening 2 times a day. After 3 days, it happened 3 times a day. I got concerned and tried to search online for reasons. I didn't find anything except for those shitty websites that told me I have all sorts of diseases. And it's weird, I didn't die 5 years ago already. All that sort of BS. So after that next day, I went to a doctor. I told him exactly what happened. He just asked me some questions, then told me to visit a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I went to a psychologist because I wasn't too worried about it. He asked me some questions also. He told me it is probably narcolepsy and referred me to a psychiatrist, which I went to after 2 days. He diagnosed me with narcolepsy and prescribed me with Adderall or something. I bought it and started using it as said. After 5 days, it got better and I fell asleep only once a day. I continued on, but after a while, like 2 days, I started falling asleep 4 times a day, and it kept getting worse each 2 days, until it happened 5 times a day. Also at the same time, I started waking up in my sleep at midnight exactly, and I started seeing a figure sitting right next to my bed on a chair, watching me, I assumed. It started creeping me out, but I'm a wuss, so I just acted like I was sleeping eventually after 6 hours at 6 a.m. When my alarm clock was set, it walked through my closed door. Gonna continue right after. Pick related it was that tall and slim. By it walking through my closed door, I mean that it bent down a bit and then just dissipated through the door. Any part of it that touched the door just dissipated. I was concerned again and visited the same psychiatrist and told him that exactly. He asked me multiple things and I answered. He prescribed me some schizo pills. This time it didn't work even 1 single bit. The day I got them, I started using them. But like always, I fell asleep 5 times in the day and then woke up at midnight. There once again was the same thing. I didn't feel as concerned, but still panicking 3 hours later at 3 a.m. a second creature, completely exactly the same I'd say from the figure. Walking right in through the closed door, its parts just started appearing out of thin air in front of the door while it was walking. Then both of them were looking at me until 6 a.m. when my alarm went off and they walked off the same way. I just thought that I was seriously schizo and that I will just have to tough it out until the pills start working. Next day it happened again, but this time both of them were already there watching me when I woke up. And at 3 a.m. the third one came in the same way the second one came in the first time. But this one was different since it kept on walking until it was right by my bed. It looked right into my face. It was really close to 6 a.m. and it finally got a bit lighter because it wasn't cloudy that day. And I can goddamn guarantee that the thing saw my eyes open and smiled. It genuinely looked right into my eyes just as I did into its, and then it smiled. The alarm clock sounded and they started walking away. At this point, I was scared shitless, because I know that they will know that I'm awake now. I called into work and told them that I felt sick and gave a shitty fake cough. The whole day I spent searching the internet for priests, explanations, pills, remedies for hallucinations, or anything at all. So I didn't find much, but I tried it all. I called in a priest who did some sort of exorcism for $100, but whatever. I bought incense and some crystals. I used the incense and placed the crystals all around. I found some remedy about some essential oils. I went around the city, found some spiritualist place, and bought the essential oils there along with the said incense. I also found some old blog with a person who drew the thing I was seeing and had a story along with it. I didn't expect that I'd post this story on 4chan or anywhere else, so my dumb ass didn't save the image or even just the page, and now I can't find it. But I remember that the person owning the blog either didn't want to post the full story, didn't get that far in telling it before dying, or just didn't have the rest of the stuff that is happening to me, happen to him, etc. I'm not very sure, but the blog certainly didn't go as far in the story as me. And the last thing I did was remove the chair and made cup pyramids in the room so I can hear them. I also bought some shitty machete from China for a few bucks and got in the bed. After some time, it was midnight. I pretended to sleep, and I heard the cups falling over. All I did was roll a bit and mummer something, and then stop to make them think I'm sleeping. But I still had my eye open a little. There were 3 of them standing there near the door looking at me, then at each other, then at me. At 1 a.m., a 4th one walked in for some reason. At 2 a.m., a 5th one walked in. And at last, at 3 a.m., a 6th one walked in. They just started watching me. But it didn't come closer. I was still a coward to attack them or such with the machete. I wanted to do it, but I couldn't. At 6 a.m., they were just about to walk away, but then realized the alarm isn't ringing, so they stayed. I got scared, thinking they won't leave, so I got all my courage and got up, hiding the machete behind my back. The second I got up, I saw them just disappear flat out. I walked to where they were right away. But nothing. I thought that they were scared of me, so I was euphoric. When it hit midnight, I didn't hear the cups go off, so I was even happier. But when I opened my eyes, there were 10 of them standing near the door. They avoided all the cups somehow. At midnight, another one came in. So 11 now. At 1 a.m., another one. Each 30 minutes, one more walked in until it was 5:30. There were 21 of them standing there. Thinking they are scared of me, I jumped up and lunged at them with the machete, but nothing. My dumb ass just tripped on all the cups and cut my hand pretty bad. Now for 4 weeks, there were 21 of them just watching me since midnight. No more coming in or out. I didn't bother putting up cups. I just woke up at midnight and went to sleep. But the next day when I woke up at midnight, all of them just stood around my bed watching me, staring right in my face. This was the moment I realized they had no eyes. Before I thought that the one near my bed just closed his eyes, but no, they just had no eyes at all. This time, I was too scared to try to attack them. At 6 a.m., they once again left. I'm scared shitless now, and typing this story didn't help. This happened this morning, and I have zero idea what to do now.
I have narcolepsy. I have had it since childhood. Your doctor should have told you that it induces hallucinations for many people. I used to see shit like you described, but after a while it goes away. It really isn't anything paranormal, although I know you might think it is. Note, the meds they give you take a long time to kick in and can induce more hallucinations and noises. This is my personal experience anyway. I still get sleep paralysis a lot, but after a while you can control it somewhat. My hallucinations used to be really vivid. I was once in the house alone. Didn't know when coming in. When coming back from uni and shouted to my sister what she wanted from the local restaurant. She shouted her usual thing, but then I remembered my sister was on holiday for 2 weeks. Pretty damn scary shit, but I remind myself it isn't real and it goes away. Another thing you might experience is losing track of time. Anyway, good luck on your future and hope for the best. It really isn't anything paranormal, even though I'm into weird shit. Every time you go to bed, keep repeating that it isn't real, and by 30 days, new neural pathways in your brain will form that will allow you to overcome it.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.